welcome back to the final panel for the day. Nearly a full hour behind schedule, which is...
Are you ready to be depressed? Yay! Let's do it!
Hello everyone, and welcome to everyone's, well, the moment we've all been waiting for, the money talk, basically. And you may notice that there's fewer persons up here than in previous panels. This is because it occurred to me that if I was going to ask creators to talk about finances and money, I should be willing to put my money where my mouth is and actually be willing to do the same. So I'm actually going to be participating as best I can in this panel. Joined by Sarah, who of course has been on panels this morning, and Jenny, who has been a wonderful presence in the audience, but sadly has yet to appear on a panel, but we're going to rectify that. So, Jenny, if you wouldn't mind, could you introduce yourself?
All right, okay. Well, I'm Jen, and I work full-time in the indie scene, and I make a lot of webcomics, and I self-publish everything, and I make fantasy and steampunk and sci-fi and space opera and slice of life, and I also make porn.
Sarah, if you'd like to remind everyone who you are.
I don't make porn. Shame, but I make NPCT, and occasionally I've drawn some stuff for you guys in the past couple of weeks, and I play ukulele, and I'm not an alcoholic.
Do you?
I can't think of anything else to say. In the first talk, we went through everything, so I think tomorrow I'm on another panel, so I'll throw in a few more. I'll throw in, no, but okay. I'll throw in little tidbits of information, of just factoids, nothing to do with comics.
I can't wait. It's gonna be exciting.
Well, and I guess it did occur to me that I never actually introduced myself at the start of the day, but as a little context, my name is John, and I write a comic called Afterlife Inc. I've also recently launched an all-ages webcomic called Zoolog, which is about science and monsters, with my good friend Ben Haith, who's in the audience here today, amazing artist. And also I'm one quarter of Big Punch Studios, alongside my wife Lucy, and Nick and Ali, and who of course have all been present here today. And we publish a variety of things, After I Think, Semstring, quarterly magazine called Extraversal, and we made a card game once as well.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. And so, we're here to talk about money and how we fund our comics, which is perhaps one of the things there's a dirty word in comics, and it's money. And in many ways, it shouldn't be, I feel, because we do never talk about it, and I don't know if that's because it's a security thing. Maybe we don't like being honest about where the money comes from. Maybe we feel it will reflect on us, or maybe it's a competitive thing and we never want to.
I don't think it's a competitive thing. I think people are just a bit scared of showing their finances in general, and also especially in comics where you earn basically nothing. It's sometimes just a bit like, oh yeah, I made this page and it's great. I got like £10 for it. Yay! And then they're like, oh, what are you doing? You're so dumb. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. So that's why I think a lot of people probably don't want to talk about it, maybe?
I don't know. I think for some people it's an ego thing, for sure.
Is it?
I was saying earlier, in one of the breaks, me and Sean, one of the first conventions that we did, we split our cash box. So we shared a cash box. So all the money, it was a terrible idea. At the end of the day, we had to go through everything that we sold and split the money to make sure that everything was square, basically. This guy next to us thought that we were flashing the cash. So he literally opened up his cash box and was looking over at us and going, ha ha. Oh my God. Wafting his notes, and we were both just like, what?
Was he doing it on the table as well, this guy?
Yeah, for sure.
But,
so...
right, okay.
That's just weird.
Not everyone does
really
that.
Weird. It's hilarious.
I once got dragged along to a football game, and I really am not a football person, but I did get dragged along, and I remember one of the opposing fans just to prove his point to the team I was ostensibly supporting. I'd just been brought there against my will. He opened his wallet and kind of just fanned some money in front of the fans as if to say, look how money I am, I support Derby.
Right, okay. People don't normally do that in comics. I have never come across that ever. People tend just not to talk about it.
Yeah, to be
so,
fair.
yeah.
It tends to be a bit cagey.
I know.
Yeah.
Like when I first, certainly in the first year I ever started exhibiting, which was 2012, I think because I'd never had a book to sell, like I'd never had anything to actually sell across the table, and I remember like after the show, tweeting, because I'd only recently got onto Twitter back when Twitter was like young and innocent, and I was kind of like, oh, like we sold X number of books, and I was like, I'm blown away. And for a little while, I got into the habit of kind of after a show, I would tweet, I've sold this many books, I've sold this many books, and then I think something kind of flicked in my head, and I was kind of like, oh, is that a bit crass? Like, is that a bit kind of?
No, I don't think so. I think I always say, like, when I'm at a convention, I tend to tweet it as well, and I always say, like, oh, now I've made back the money to get here, and now I've actually made back all the other costs, and now I'm in profit. So, like, I let people know how long it takes for me to actually earn money, and I think it's absolutely fine, and people tend to appreciate knowing that, because a lot of time if people don't talk about it, how are we gonna know? Like, it costs a lot of money to get the convention as well. Like, you have to book a hotel, you have to get there, and the table costs money. So, like, you're in debt before you even started. So that's another thing. And printing books, can go into all of that. We won't ramble on about that.
No, I mean, how about I kind of like a way of an extended introduction. Perhaps Jenny, maybe you could start us off. Could you kind of just describe? Again, it doesn't have to be in kind of forensic detail,
Okay.
but what are the channels by which money comes in for you? Because
I literally have notes in front of me because there are so many. I've also done like a really casual vlog on this where I literally went through all the platforms I use, and I think I talked for 40 minutes. Vince listened to all of it. Thank you very much. I'm amazed you got through it. 47 minutes of me just talking about online platforms and how I get my money, which ones pay me, which ones don't. Like, if you want to listen to that later, you can. But like, in short, I get most of my money from my pages that people are literally paying me to do the art. And then the rest of the money comes in like little bits. So I get like a little bit from a convention, from sales, and then I get it from the following things. I get sales through Twitter, because people like listening to me there, and then they go, oh, you also do comics, how lovely, I'll buy something. I get nothing through Facebook because Facebook is bad. Maybe you've been able to make it work. I can't make it work without having to boost my thing, and then it's like, I'm not going to pay Facebook to show my posts. I can do that myself.
As a side note, I've recently I made the switch from, well, no, I still have a page associated with my comic, but I made a switch to having a group.
I've heard that's a lot better.
This is interesting
because the algorithm doesn't touch the group.
It's an ongoing
dreaded algorithm.
The goalposts are always moving, but I've seen success with setting up an associated group with the page. So I have Afterlife Inc. as a page, and I also have Afterlife Inc. a fan group you can believe in, and people in that. And it's interesting, like in terms of engagement, it's not astronomical, but it's so much better than what it was.
Yeah, that's a magical word. Engagement. How much do you get on Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, I think? Now? And they also change their algorithms all the time, and everyone's like, what do I put in my hashtag so that they don't shadow ban me? And especially if you do some of the stuff I do, which has boobs in it, they're just like, no, we don't want any of that stuff. So you're instantly just shadow banned and no one will see your stuff. So it's really difficult. But the one thing that I've joined only this year is Etsy, and that got me a lot of money immediately.
Because people browse Etsy.
Because you can actually be discovered on Etsy. Like, nothing's hidden really. So people can just be like, oh, I want to find a comic about, I don't know. Sorry, I'm just be talking about smut now. About smut, and then it's like, boom, there you go, and it's just great. So Etsy works really well, and Twitch as well, which is very, very good. Which basically means that I sit on. Do people know what Twitch is?
Not really.
Oh, okay. Basically, think a bit like YouTube, but it's live streaming. So there's a lot of gamers who basically live stream all their stuff. That's how it started, but now it's sort of moved into like a creative space as well. So if you go there and you check the creative community, you can literally live stream yourself drawing, and people will come and watch you, and they can give you tips, they can give you, bits rather, and they can like get links to your coffee account, which is another way you can get money. They can get links to your Patreon, which is the best thing ever, by the way. And they can get links to your shop, and you're basically there going, hey, I'm drawing comics. It's really great. And then like, wow, you draw comics? That's amazing. And then you go, yes, I do. You can buy them here. And then people go and buy it. And it's amazing.
It is interesting. Like I and Nick, I know you've dabbled in Twitch at Big Punch Towers. But it's interesting, like my primary exposure to Twitch has been watching some people play video games, obviously, which is what it's primarily kind of made for. And if you ever want to have an existential crisis, you really should just watch the money exchange hands. I watched a guy.
Gamers make so much
I can't even remember why I was watching the guy, because he was quite infuriating, but he was talking about.
So infuriating.
And obviously, when you're watching, you can have quite clever overlays going. You can have split screen.
You can talk about that for hours, honestly.
But he had like rolling. A very popular thing is to have a rolling counter every time someone pledges.
Yeah.
Or you can subscribe on Twitch, which is a bit like subscribing on Patreon.
Yeah, exactly. And you can show like. Gifts can come up when someone gives you money. I have gifts of my budgie going, "Brrr," and people go, wow, budgie, and then they give more money, and I'm like, what?
Draw the budgie, the budgie.
So now I have a budgie cam now, so people come and watch me, but they also mainly go there for the budgie, which is really weird. So I'm there like painting fully like colored like watercolor pages of like this fantasy stories and stuff, and they're like, oh, that's nice. Your budgie's so adorable. Here, have some like £1 of
And you're like,
stuff.
I bled into this artwork.
Yeah, and I was like,
budgie.
what I'm doing? My budget's just sitting there pooping, literally doing nothing. But yeah, did they just give?
I think it's like the
money?
sense of community.
Yeah.
And that guy who I found quite infuriating, he had like landmark goals like you might have on Patreon or Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And he said, when I raise $10,000, I'm going to buy a new rig, I'm going to buy a new gaming computer. And he was just like playing this game, and like it's like someone pledged $100, someone pledged $5, someone pledged $100, and he goes, oh cool, I just got a new computer. And just carried on like that. And it's almost kind of like, I mean, on the one hand, I've got to salute the entrepreneurialism of it.
Yeah.
But on the second hand, it is kind of sickening, for lack of a better word. When
The creative
so much money.
community on there is really fresh and new, so you won't have as many people. Like the guy that you're talking about, he probably had thousands of people watching him play. So the chat was probably going when you can't even read it because people are just going, memes and all that stuff. But then, like, if you go to the creative community, you'll have a really busy creative, like an illustrator or something, would have maybe 70 people watching, and that's like really, that's intense. I have, at the most, when you get raided by people, but really popular people come and give their followers to you because they're going offline. That's another thing with Twitch, is really good. The most I've had was like 200 people watching, and oh my god, that was an experience. But other than that, it tends to be about 15 people who watch me regularly, and they just say that it's really nice because they're sitting at home working on comics. They have no one to talk to because all they do is sit at home, and suddenly there's someone there on, on the screen doing comics as well, and just chilling and, chatting. It's like having an online studio, basically. And then a lot of them give me tips because they just appreciate that I'm there. This is one lady who comes in who basically says, I come in here to basically pay you to talk to me. I'm like, oh, you don't have to do that. It's adorable, we don't have to do that. But yeah, it's amazing. I highly suggest trying it if you have the ability to, because it's really good. And it's very good for your health as well, at least for mine, because I don't go outside, because I work on this full time. So I don't have days off, I don't have holidays, I sit at home and I work, and that's it. So actually talking to people is nice. So yeah.
It's very nice to have you here.
Oh, thanks. I'm gonna
glad you got outside.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back to the hotel room and do work. So it's gonna be great.
So Jenny, I'm sure we can come back to some of your platforms as well, because you seem to have done a really, frankly, astonishing job of diversifying the platforms in which you appear. Yeah.
because you don't know which ones are going to make you money until you try. And this sounds really cold now. It's like, which ones are going to get me the dosh? But like, if you don't do it, you only have so much time in your day. Like, I want to just draw, but I can't just draw because I'm a one-woman business. So I have to do all my admin, all my, emails and everything as well. So I have to pick and choose which platforms actually work. And so far, I can tell you that Facebook doesn't work for me. It might work for you guys, but it doesn't work for me. Instagram doesn't work for me, especially since the algorithm shift. So I just use that as like an online portfolio, basically.
Are you using promoted posts on Instagram and Facebook, or are you talking about just organic posts?
Just organic. I don't do boosted stuff because I don't want to spend money. So basically, I've been able to make it so far by not spending any money. But yeah, and I've also got Ko-fi, which is like, if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a tip button where people can buy you a coffee, but it goes to your PayPal, so it's like a little tip jar basically. And obviously Patreon.
I'm sure. I'm sure we can come. I mean, frankly, I'm sure we can focus on Patreon in some detail in a
I mean, I've got an entire thing here on Patreon. It's like, if anyone is curious about Patreon and if you want to try it as a comic creator, just come and talk to me afterwards. I'm more than happy to tell you how it's going for me. And basically, without Patreon, I wouldn't be full time. It's just that's just it. So it's like, without Patreon and the 3-4 people who are currently paying me my page rate, I wouldn't be doing this full time. So it's that security. Amazing. Yeah. So if Patreon wasn't there, no.
So, I mean, and Sarah, what's your kind of situation?
Maybe not as intense. I'm going to list like that. I think like the only thing I could really add, because I just do Patreon, Kickstarter is like my big thing, is that instead of making money from the Kickstarter itself, I use the Kickstarter to fund the print run, and then everything I make off that, I order extra, and then selling the extra, I make money off that, which is really good going to cons, because every con I sell at, as soon as I make back my table and my travel, everything else is profit or profit. I say profit. Most of it goes back into printing more stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing I did try, which I don't recommend you do, is some people. I got an ISBN for one of my graphic novels.
Really? Because we're going to have a talk. Because I need to get them, I think, to get into shops.
I've done an ISBN for every book I've done.
Yeah.
Did it help you?
Well, I have a nice barcode on the back of them now. I mean,
I don't have an ISBN on any of my work.
I think getting an ISBN is really good future-proofing. So if you want to, if at some point, for some reason, everything takes off, you can get it on, you don't have any roadblocks into getting it into shops, into libraries, onto Amazon. However, I got it mainly so I could go on Amazon. If you want to talk about shit algorithms, Amazon is the worst. It is so bad. I am the creator of this comic. It is on Amazon, and a seller has a higher algorithm than me. So when you search for it, it doesn't say buy it now, it says buy from these sellers, and the seller at the top is someone else who's selling it for less than me. When you search for my name, when you search for my comic, nothing comes up. You have to be if you're on Amazon and you want to start making money, you have to be, it's terrible, you have to be a featured seller, and there is no guide for how to become a featured seller. There is nothing. You have to work it out for yourself.
It is so counterintuitive. I mean, I just basically stopped caring after a while when it came to Amazon, because I remember discovering, when I had 2 books out, they were both on Amazon, and I go to them and hey, I'm the owner. I wrote these. Why can't I register as that? And they're like, we don't care. They're like, it's this person is selling a book, and I don't care if you're, the author, the publisher, or whatever. It's you're just another person selling the book.
Yeah, I haven't even tried Amazon yet.
So I think it's easy. You just use Amazon. Sorry, this is really boring.
This is really dry. I'm sorry.
They don't take a massive cut, but what you do is it's called Fulfilled by Amazon. So it's a lot easier. All you do is you just send off a box of your books, and it just sits in their warehouse. You don't have to. The plus side is you don't have to do any of the fulfillment. They do everything.
Do they send them back to you if they don't sell?
You have to pay. So you pay every year. I get billed. There's you get paid for how much space you take up in the warehouse. So I get billed £30 a year or something for how much space. Actually, it's probably less.
That's not bad, but
I've sold out of the entire time I've been on Fulfilled by I've been on Amazon. I think I've sold 3 books.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's great that I can say you can search for me on Amazon if you spend hours looking through everything.
trying
I
to
am
find
on
it.
Amazon,
Yeah.
but it's more of a pain to get them out of the warehouse at the moment.
Yeah,
So
you need like a platform that's like got discoverability, if that's the word.
Etsy is so much better.
Etsy is amazing for that. Kickstarter is amazing for that. You can just find anything on Kickstarter. And Patreon is crap for that. So basically, if you go on Patreon, you go in their comics section, you will see the top 20 creators. That's it. So people who don't have like 1,000, backers or whatever, they won't be visible for someone who's just browsing and looking for something to pledge to. They can only pledge to the already popular people, which doesn't really work.
If I follow a podcast called Surviving Creativity, and it's run by a couple of American webcomic creators. And it's interesting because one of the creators is Scott Kurtz, who creates for comic PvP and Table Titans. But interestingly, also on the podcast is his business manager, Corey. And Corey is a font of all knowledge. And in fact, in the early days of the convention, I did actually approach him to see if we couldn't get some kind of information from him or even an appearance, because I fly him across the Atlantic. But he's incredible because he has an astonishing business mind, and they went to a Patreon conference in America, which was from the Patreon headquarters, was saying, hey, we're just reaching out to people on Patreon, come and talk to us, like have a kind of one-to-one with us, and we can kind of say. And interestingly, the word from Patreon themselves was, we are not a platform for engagement.
Well, there you go then.
they just said, bring your engaged fan base to us.
Okay, so that's basically YouTubers then. So you'll basically have people who've got massive fan bases already, and they don't need to do any work. They just take the money then. I love Patreon because obviously that they basically make sure that I can do this full time. But I'm under no illusion that Patreon isn't. They're not great. They have issues. They have changed their contracty things when it comes to smut as well. Like they just do it on the fly, and suddenly other like smut creators like myself, they just get deleted, or all their stuff just goes boop. Sorry, no, you've been suspended because we're not going to tell you. And this is happening to like British.
Because they suddenly said that anything,
I think I've seen that.
anything remotely adult has to be behind a paywall.
Yeah, so
which
I've
is
got
all well
that.
and good, but if they haven't warned you before that's coming, then it's suddenly.
But some of them didn't even have that. So sometimes they just seem to, again, just make things disappear without any kind of notice. So again, even though you have all these, like I've got my whole list here of all the things that are currently getting me money, it's because I need that safety net. If something just goes away, I'm not, completely dead, and I can't buy food, because you haven't really got that safety if you're self-employed, because basically you haven't got a proper contract with anyone really, so you're like left in the dust. It is frightening. Sometimes it's quite exciting, but I think it was quite exciting in the beginning, and I was like, let's do this, and now I'm like, this is really crap. But it's still, it's fun.
Sorry, Sarah, because you are full-time. I was wondering, did we cover all the platforms? Like, is it commissions and direct sales?
I think I'm a bit like further behind than you are, because full cards on the table, I do still live at home, and if I wasn't living at home, I would properly be struggling. But at the same time, like, I'm working on getting things like Patreon. Kickstarter is really helping.
Kickstarter's good.
Amazon.
No.
No. Twitch sounds like a really good idea.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna
if you want to have a chat.
get on that for sure. Trying to think if there's anything else. Etsy is really great.
Yep.
And the rest of it is just like commissions, contracts, like stuff like that.
Comixology?
I don't know. I haven't tried. I've heard that like Comixology is quite difficult again through discoverability, that you can get hidden. I don't know.
They're now owned, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're now owned by Amazon?
Yeah.
Yes, in fact, just in the last couple of weeks, they've changed it so that if you previously had a Comixology Submit login, you now have to merge it with an Amazon account.
Oh yeah, that's what happened, because I was trying to, this is ages ago, but I was trying to put one of my, pornography onto Comixology, and they basically came back and said, oh, this is lovely, it's just that, could you just edit the lettering? And I was like, no. So I just kind of, this was way back, and I was kind of, no, I'm not going to do that. So I just left it, and I didn't do anything with it. But now I'm actually going to go back, I think, because not only are Comixology okay with smut, they will accept it, but also apparently they basically, they do all the work for you. This is what I've heard. I'm not sure if it's true. But yeah, basically they do all so you just have to submit it, but then they will like put it up on their site and we'll make it all the pretty stuff.
And they have the guided view.
They have guided view stuff, and they do everything. And then when you talk to them, I've heard that you talk to a human being, which is nice.
I've got, I've got to say, like, even before they got bought by the kind of behemoth that is Amazon.
That is Amazon, yeah.
They were always very quick to reply, and one of the things is like in setting up a Comixology account, we had to fill out a US tax form, which was challenging, and I remember that there was a human being on the other end of the email, and they were very helpful. And one of the good things that has come out of Amazon buying them is that they now actually have a bigger accountancy team, and they are even better, I would say.
Yeah, and they take. Is it 50% of your cover?
The platform. Because they moved off Apple. Because originally Apple would take their third. Comixology would take 50% of
Apple takes as well.
But they specifically moved in-app purchases off Apple devices.
Right. Okay.
I remember the great switch happened. I used to use, oddly enough, I was using Comixology on my tablet a few years back, and I was reading the Sandman Overture, and I read like part 1. Which I just downloaded in the app, like, ooh, what a great way to fritter away money. I can just press buttons and it disappears. Press a button,
so easy.
And I read it, goes, oh, that's fantastic. I'll download part 2, and then it goes, you can't. I'm like, oh, what's happening? And in that moment, the clock had ticked over, and Comixology withdrew all in-app purchases from their app, basically to screw Apple over, because they're like, we don't want Apple taking a cut. So now you have to go to the website, make your orders, and then they appear in the app.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Oh, that's so counterintuitive. It's great.
And
Fine on Android.
yeah.
Also a better screen ratio.
Yes.
It is interesting because it actually, oddly enough, it stopped me looking at Comixology on my tablet because I was using an iPad, and I just stopped kind of reading Comixology. But it's been better for the creator in an odd way.
Oh yeah, and also it's free to submit, whereas with Etsy it costs 20 cents, something like that. Yeah, and it only lasts for what? 5 months? No, 3 months or something. I don't know exactly, but it's only listed for a few months, and it costs money to list it. Whereas with Comixology, it's all free, as far as I know. And I think they also quite recently have changed so that you don't get paid quarterly.
That they're rolling that out.
They're going to roll that out next year, so you get paid every month, right? Yeah. So that would be exactly. That'd be a lot better. So honestly, that's one of the things I've written it down. Like I'm gonna be submitting to them because if you just take a day where you just submit all your stuff and then you're done with it, then you can just carry on with your life, and then you'll get. If everything goes well, you'll get like little checks coming in, like little checky poos.
Sorry, quick question at the front.
Have you guys done Kindle thing?
No, they hate smutty porn, so I can't.
Similar thing to Amazon as well.
But so I put it on both, and they're basically they're both Amazon now, so it's basically the same. But you can. But the reason I bring it up is because it's kind of like Comixology that people can go there and then buy it for a few pounds or whatever. But they also have the Kindle Unlimited or whatever it's called, where it's like Netflix or whatever, where people pay a prescription, they can basically get your comic kind of for free and read it, and then you get like a tiny amount of money, which is effectively negligible. But it's good because obviously if they're looking for your content, they then find it, they read it, and then they can go and buy the actual book. It's just another way of advertising.
Yeah.
And I think this has always been my, I guess, kind of internal struggle with putting it on multiple platforms. It's like I'm torn between having a limited number of platforms but controlling it absolutely, or putting it on as many platforms as possible.
Don't go on Tapastic.
Tapastic, yeah. I have very mixed emotions about Tapastic.
I saw their terms of service and I was just like, no.
They also have a history of not being very good to young creators who want to just get into comics. So they basically go, oh, we have this, I think it's called like incubator program.
Yeah, it's
We're
like a
gonna-
hot house. They kind of.
Yeah, we're gonna make you into a like amazing comic book creator. And we're gonna pay you per page. You're gonna live the dream, and everyone's just like, I'm gonna get paid for doing comics. Yes. And then you read the terms and services, and it's just like you're gonna get paid about what was it, $20 per page. You have no sickness pay, whatever it's called in America, and you also don't own it when it's done. So when it's done, you co-own it with Tapastic, and they basically can do whatever they want with it. So you're signing off, not only are you signing off your creative work to them, you're getting paid, excuse my language, shit for it. So just don't do it.
What's that as well? There's something to do with the scheduling as well.
Oh, the
you have to
scheduling was-
release it as a really grueling kind of
Yeah,
pace
they were
as
like
well.
whipping them. It's just like, do you want to do comics, kids? Get on it.
Sorry, I noticed we had a couple of questions, and before I get to you, so I'm just going to jump to the back. David, you had a question?
Two questions. It's just off the back of the Kindle one, if anyone's using Comic House and how they found that as the app, and also,
Comic House?
yeah.
No.
Oddly, is anyone here on Comic House?
Is this a UK thing or a
Yeah,
US?
UK thing.
Okay.
Yeah, generally, I mean, in a nutshell, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's going down the kind of Netflix for comics kind of model. I mean,
Okay.
I have no personal experiences of it. I was wondering, like,
Monthly subscription, basically.
yeah.
And what did the creators get?
The creators get a certain amount of money because they have adverts. So the more people that click on the comic, it's an advert that will pop up and like for 2 seconds you can get rid of it. That's literally what it is.
So they're
But
doing
I-
it to
but
plastic.
In my experience, I've made more from Comic House than I ever have with the Comics Authority.
Really? Okay, I'm gonna look into that.
But the thing is, like, you're not really selling from the Comic House app.
Do you own your
If
stuff?
People have a subscription,
Yeah.
they can read your comics for free.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah,
I think if you're having an issue one, you don't necessarily want to put it on
Do they?
straight away.
Okay. Do they like titties?
I think they do.
Good.
They've got
Okay.
a lot of,
Okay.
There's a lot of horror on there. So I
Okay.
think
Okay.
they'll be alright with
I'm
kids.
sorry, there's a second question from David.
And with things like this, do you ever feel like you're giving your comic away for free? Is there any like tension about having someone who can read your comic without ever giving you any money?
Sorry, and I appreciate I've not been repeating the questions for the benefit of the microphone, but the question was, do you have trouble with the idea of giving your comic away for free, and what is the eventual return, kind of, if any, on that? For me personally, I started, when I first made Book 1 of Afterlife Inc., I released the chapters monthly on my website, and I think maybe nobody even looked at my website. Like, I didn't even know how to track that kind of thing, and it was an awful website. And so, but oddly enough, after doing that for a year, when I went to my first show at London Super Comic Con in February 2012, the very first sale I ever made of my book was a girl ran up to the table and goes, "Oh, Afterlife Inc., I read that online," and grabbed the book. And I was like, flipping heck, that was amazing.
They're like silent audience you just don't hear from.
And this is the
Yeah.
astonishing thing, like, and again, I have been following for a while a bunch of American webcomic creators, and I feel there's so much the UK scene can learn from that market, so much. And as counterintuitive as it seems, I originally published digital first on my website, took that content off my website, and then started selling books because our direct sales across tables at conventions were pretty good, and we were quite happy with that. And it was the idea that why would I be giving stuff away for free when I could be, I want people to be buying my physical books because that gets me the best return. I've now come full circle yet again. For the last 2 years, I learnt WordPress. I made myself a website I was semi-happy with because I was like, okay, it looks all right. And I uploaded the entire back catalogue of Afterlife Inc. to the website in its entirety. Nice. I'm just being honest, it's all up there, like I have nothing to hide. And then when we kickstarted Volume 4, it saw print first, but then I started serializing that content 3 pages a week on my website, and that gave us like a year's worth of content. And I was paying at the time for Project Wonderful advertising. Project Wonderful,
they've gone now,
RIP,
They're
ended
dead now.
last week after like 10 years of service, so great. Need to look for other ways of advertising my webcomic. And I had kind of peak, it got into a kind of rolling thing where I was getting about 2,000 hits a day on the webcomic alone, and 2 people commenting regularly. So you talk about like the screaming silence of kind of feedback, but some of the most successful Kickstarters I've ever seen run for books have a well-established webcomic presence.
Yes.
And then once a year, they do a collected edition of the year's content, and they have an entire pre-existing fan base who go, you know what, I've been enjoying your content for free for a year. I want that year as a book. And they come back. And I think that's one of the strongest models.
Yeah, well, webcomics, that's the reason webcomics are so like popular, and I think they're the future, to be honest. Well, they're the present, really. But like the fact that you can try before you buy, I guess. So you can like read someone's stuff completely for free on the internet, and then you can be like, I actually really like this person. I'm gonna start following them here. I'm gonna start doing this here, and then after a while, you'll be like, actually, I like this a lot. So I'm gonna start buying, you know, the book from them, or maybe some artwork from them. But like a lot of people want to make sure that they like something before they actually commit to any kind of money. So
and this is where something like Patreon is so wonderful, because even recently with Patreon rolled out their new API, which I don't even know what that stands for, but
The short explanation of what it just means it's an integration.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know what it means, but I read the tutorials and I worked out how to integrate it into my website. So now on afterlifeinc.com, we have a walled garden and a little login button that says exclusive content. You click on it and it goes, this is for patrons only. Are you a patron? If you are, log in. And when you log in, you get a ton of content which is only visible to patrons.
oh man, I need someone to do that for me.
And some people do it to remove adverts. You know, they'll say like, hey, you know, you like my website without ads. You know, you're a patron, you're already paying me.
Yeah.
So
I think it's 2 things, isn't it? Because I think there's always going to be people who want to read stuff physically rather than digitally, and there's always going to be people as well who want to support you as well as what you're making, and they want you to support you so you make more things. So they know that if they, you know, they'll read the comic for free, but you know, they know that if they back you on Patreon, then you'll bring something else out, or you know, but because I was going to say something else then, I can't remember what it was.
I think when you say about people supporting you and stuff, I can't remember who said this. It was on an American podcast. But basically, I think you only need about, 500 or 1,000 true fans, and then you're basically set. So there are people right now who you don't see them at conventions, so they're not, and no one knows who they are, but they're just comfortably making a living making comics just off their Patreons, because they have enough people, and you don't need many, but they have enough that they can actually live on it.
And honestly, sorry, Sarah, not I'll make this brief, but honestly, that was one of the driving thoughts for me in even wanting to set up this event today.
Yeah.
Because it's like sometimes, I know I've been guilty of it, I can become so obsessed with trying to strive to rise to the top, or like, you know, the idea about working to Marvel or DC for me was like the be all and end all for the longest time. And then I realized that like there are a ton of people I can think of who I respect immensely, who are just making great comics day in, day out, to a dedicated fan base who are paying, you know, for them to make a living.
These little communities of people who are just making stuff, and it's amazing.
And I was like, do you think they care about working for Marvel or DC? I was like, no,
no.
they're doing great. Like, you know,
I'm really happy doing.
That's what I want to aspire to now. Yeah.
I just like to make a tiny bit more money, and then I'm set.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm that as well. Just a little bit more.
Yeah, that'll be fine. I'd like to, you know, move out, have a cat, and go on holiday every now and then I'll be fine.
A dog.
But I was just going to say quickly
is
that the model that I quite like at the moment is that I did free comic book day, which was just giving out issue 1 for free. That was really, really good. I got sales from that, because the people who are following me now are up to issue 3 or 4, and so they've already read it. It's quite old for them. They don't mind that I'm sharing it for free. But then also I have it as a webcomic on Patreon, which is £90. You can like subscribe for 1 month and then quit, and you can read the whole thing.
Can I raise an interesting point there? And I don't know how this gels with your experience, but another thing that was reported back on that podcast from the Patreon conference themselves is that Patreon was saying exclusive content is nice, but it shouldn't be the be all and end all, which is interesting. They're saying early access is pretty good. They polled a load of patrons saying like, why do you support the people you do? And it's like the third most important thing was like early access. I think the second most important thing was kind of exclusive content.
Yeah.
But the most important thing was basically, I just want to support these people.
Yeah. Also,
which is,
keep in mind that comics as an industry is tiny compared to other industries, and indie comics, like a small press, we're like super tiny compared to everyone else. So like a Patreon, I don't think Patreon really needs to cater to us because we're so small.
No.
So
and you think of the conversion rate, where it's like you just view circles even like after I think is moving in, it's like 2,000 readers a day.
That's a lot.
And one comment. But
yeah.
it's like that's like the level of engagement, kind of. And it's like, tell me something. Do you hate it? Do you love it? Like, I have no idea.
Well,
like
2,000 keep coming back.
People
So
reading it,
you
so
know.
that's a sign.
Yeah.
Right there. I think you had a question though.
I think was
Yeah,
it Sam?
Everyone has questions.
Oh, sorry. No, I
Sorry.
tell you what. You had a question.
Yeah, I was also going to quickly make a comment on Patreon. Like, that's how I, when I back people, I don't think I've even looked at any of the, because I just never bother to log on. It's like, so I was like, oh, I like them. And it's like, and then occasionally I go for around, it's like, oh, and switch up who I'm doing this. Like on the like $1 in a month, like a handful of creators, and I don't even look at the. I've never looked.
Yeah,
at
it's
any
like a
of
little
the
tip.
posts.
It's like a little
You're
tip jar,
killing me.
basically.
You're absolutely killing me.
Too much effort for me, like go to the website.
Sorry.
Have to click.
All those hours.
Have to click through things.
I was going to ask you, you said about like you don't get money through Facebook or things. What platforms do you use to like get engagement so as to get to Patreon? Because you said like people don't search on Patreon to find you. How do
Okay.
you get people to get to these?
To actually know that I exist,
Yeah.
basically. Right. So Twitter is a main one because I'm on there and I've been on there for years, like 10 years I think now. It's sad. It's really sad. Twitch is a new one. Twitch has actually gotten me a lot of people interested. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh, I haven't mentioned Mastodon at all, have I?
The Twitter killer.
Mastodon.
Yes, the Twitter killer. That it didn't kill Twitter, but basically a lot of people from Twitter.
Nazis kill Twitter.
Yeah, Nazis kill Twitter. A lot of people on Twitter just went, I just don't want these Nazis around anymore. I'm so sick of it. So they just went to Mastodon, and then they were like, oh, this is a really quiet place. I don't really like this anymore. And then they all went back to the Twitter, whereas I use both, and I use Mastodon, and it doesn't have the algorithm. It doesn't have, like, the dreaded algorithm. It doesn't have the ads. It doesn't have the business rubbish that you'll see on your Twitter feed. So you're actually engaging with people in real time. It's weird. And I've literally had people come up to, not just come up to me digitally and basically say that, yeah, I'm buying this off you off Etsy now because I saw you on Mastodon. So Mastodon is actually now slowly surpassing sales from Twitter. And Twitter used to be like the big gangbusters, basically. But yeah, other than that,
Oddly enough, it may sound counterintuitive, but like our primary platform, the Big Punch, has always been shows. Like
conventions. That was
Yeah.
it.
conventions. Yeah, I was getting, yeah.
Oh my
those,
God.
yeah.
You know, actually seeing people. Yeah.
And it's interesting. Like we've tried a lot of things, and some have worked, some haven't. You know, we always tried to keep mixing it up. But certainly in recent years, we started putting a flyer in all our books that basically just said, "Hey, like if you like what we do." You know, and we have a Patreon, and it's a way that you can get content from us, and we have seen some return on that. Because
all my books have my Patreon in them now.
Because I think you've got two very different audiences. We have the traditional convention-going audience of fans, and this is where we kind of made a name for ourselves. This is where we kind of started out. It was all about conventions, shows. That's all we cared about because we did fairly well at shows. The books seemed to sell well, and we had returning fans. You see a fan, hey, I saw you last year, and they come back. The problem is, I love a good convention, but they're also expensive, tiring, draining, exhausting, nauseating. Like all these kind of like as fun as they are, they do take it out of you.
Yeah.
And I think it's like I've been thinking for the longest time. It's like we needed to break our obsession, not our obsession, our kind of. We needed conventions. We were so reliant on conventions. We had no way around. And my thinking was, how could we take a fan who clearly loved our work enough to come back every year and see if we had a new book and say, how can we engage with you all year round? And it's like, maybe you might consider becoming a patron. And then it's like you spend the same amount, but spread over the course of a year
Mhm.
or something like that, rather than I'm going to see you at one show and make one big purchase.
And then really like brutal business brain is like, yes, pay throughout the year and then see me at the convention
Damn,
as
do it all
well.
again.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper to be at home and do everything on the internet. It takes a lot of time and frustration, and you have to learn the hard way. At least I did. But you know, if you balance that and you have most of your stuff online, and then you go to a select few conventions, I do about maximum of 4, because more than that, and I'm done. And I just pick the ones that I know I tend to do well at. But sometimes you just have to like try new ones to see if maybe you have an audience there. And sometimes that turns out to be a dud. But that's just the way it is with the conventions.
Sorry, you had a question there.
Have you tried, or do you know what it is, affiliate marketing?
Right, I'm going to pretend to be really clever now and go, I don't know.
So a friend of mine who does, that sort of thing. He does big events and stuff like that, and setting them up, but also like telling people about them. Anyway, he said, "Have you tried affiliate marketing?" I haven't tried it. I haven't started it yet because there's just setting it up. But basically, the concept is that you you kind of make adverts, and then you get people, for example, blogs who do something vaguely connected to what you're doing to have the banners on their site, and then when that banner sells something like your book, which obviously sells like 10 quid or whatever, you give them a percent, and you can give them potentially quite a high percent if you're an indie person, because you can have like 20% if you want. Then it incentivizes them to like put it on their blog because they're getting some money out of it, and so it's called affiliate marketing. So yeah, you set up banners like different shapes, and people can put them in there, and you have to get them to do it, but then they sell your stuff and you get money back. So I didn't know if anybody tried it.
I haven't tried it. I know of it, and it's just no. it's just too much work, and also because I don't know any of that actual business side, I don't feel comfortable doing it.
This is going to sound really bad, but I'm a really shit capitalist.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
really bad.
Yeah, me too.
I don't like the idea. But I just like... So when I have people talk about, I don't know about you guys, when I have people talk about my comics, it's like I want them to talk about my comics because they like them. And I find that kind of organic advertising is so much more worthwhile than paying someone to put a banner up. And also because 60% probably more of people now have ad blockers, so they're not going to see that advert anyway. And and I just think I've found for me, like, trying to get people to promote myself is just being like a nice person who makes nice things.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I kind of like aim to.
It's a really slow process though as
Yeah.
well. You have to be at conventions, you have to show yourself off a bit and be like hello, and then it slowly goes over to all the social media and everything, and then if they like you still, then they buy something. So it feels more genuine.
It's interesting because conventions were our bread and butter. It's like we put a lot of time and thought into it, and always hated the hard sell. It's like there was nothing for me that was a bigger turn off than buy my book, or kind of like grabbing people and kind of forcing them over. And we always felt that like the best sales strategy we could possibly have was just to try and be nice and welcoming. And it's interesting because you want people to go like, hey, I like these people and I like their book. And it'd be nice if they go like, I like this book and I had a really positive experience at the table. And we always just like, hey, take your time if you want to browse. You're more than welcome. If you like the book, that's.
It sounds really terrible, and it's not useful in the slightest. But I think my biggest advertisement has been word of mouth. Just people telling their friends and being like, this is really good, you should check it out. Or I gave this to my friend, they really enjoyed it, and now I want to buy one. Which is not useful in the slightest. I don't know how you make that happen. I don't know. I'm constantly surprised that it happens to me.
Sorry, we had a question from Ned in the front.
That's not really a question, it's more of like an observation. Like you talk about affiliate marketing, like I negotiate those kinds of deals for a living, and like it's interesting you mentioned like the kind of capitalism angle, because the problem with affiliate marketing is that what people tend to do now, it's like warped from like where it used to be, like, because it comes from like the newspaper ad sort of model where it's like you have a certain amount of space and you pay based on the space or whatever, and that's how the deal's worked out. But the problem is now is that it's not about money anymore, they're more commonly referred to as cross-promotional deals. So like the idea is you are bringing something to whoever's putting your ad on their site. And so one, you have to be able to prove that you have something to give, like you have a following, which again in this kind of indie space could be difficult because it might not be that you measure up with the metrics that they go on. And the other thing is that you have to be able to kind of give them some, like you have to bring people back to them as well. So you kind of have to make that deal with yourself that like, okay, well, if I'm gonna enter into this kind of cross-promotional thing, I have to promote them as much as they promote me. And if you don't have the space to do that, or you're not comfortable promoting them for whatever reason, that then becomes a massive like kind of barrier to entry for that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's really interesting because I've never really heard of people doing that outside the corporate space. But like, yeah, it's just like it's annoyingly complicated in that respect.
I think as well when sorry.
Just quickly, the other side of things is something from the blog on the other end of the spectrum. I found that sort of affiliate marketing doesn't really work well for anyone in our sphere.
It just doesn't feel genuine, I guess, for people.
Yeah.
In the indie scene, at least, I guess.
Sorry, Sarah, you're gonna.
I can't remember. I think
I'm
I was just
sorry.
going to know. My brain is starting. It's the end of the day, and I'm just like, what?
Well,
That's interesting. My brain shut down.
I had a topic I'd like to bring up, but if you had a quick question.
I just want to ask you, where like you're giving away from stream, like using word of mouth, because I guess it sounds like you're working sort of longer form narrative comic, and I typically work in like short form jokes, like single panel or a panel joke, and I found with like when like with word of mouth, like people pick it up and read it, it's like they've got all they're going to get from it then, and like they've shown it to their friends, and like people have been very enthusiastic about that, but turning that into sales is hard, like posting stuff online and people can't go like, well, I can read this online because with like the jokes, like they've seen it once they've got all they're going to get from it. So I didn't know if you had any sort of advice on...
Well, it's interesting because I love and live by long form narratives. I don't mean narratives that are going to run forever, and there is an ending in sight, but it's a stupid road to walk because I love it, but you'll get a lot of hype about issue 1, and you'll get a lot of hype around the very last issue, the grand finale. But if you're in the middle of something, keeping that engagement going is tricky. But I mean, like you mentioned, like kind of paraphrasing a little bit on what you said, but kind of like how popular gag comics can be, or 3-panel kind of, I guess like the natural successor to like web newspaper strips. I mean, you look at something like poorly drawn lines, a webcomic. I think that's some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen on a screen or a page or whatever. It's absolutely brilliant. And I go to that website every now and then and I check it out and I go, that's a good laugh. What have I missed? And of course, there isn't really a continuity you need to keep track of. And yet, the first collected edition of that, which got an Esco the green space bear on the cover, you have to check it out. It makes sense in context. But that's all great guns. So clearly, I don't personally think that's such a...
I think it's...
a problem.
Well, I think
I was just wondering how.
I think what's her name? Because it's so late now. She's really popular. Sarah Scribble. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she does like slice of life stuff, and as far as I know, she does them in like almost like coffee table books.
Yeah.
So it's not like doing like a floppy book or anything like that. If you're trying to sell your gag comics, do them as like these big, I guess, coffee table nice books that you can almost give as a gift to someone. So be like, hey, read this funny business, and they'll be like, wow. So I think that works better if you're gonna sell it.
I think there's also something about like the short kind of worst case scenario. Someone's gonna nick it, take your watermark off it, and share it, and it'll go viral.
Yeah.
Best case scenario you can hope for is you tweet about it, and it goes viral. Because if you make like a little funny joke which is shared by like 10 million people, and it just it brightens their Tuesday morning, they're gonna remember you in some capacity.
I think it's like, but the thing is, when you have that like super popular tweet, you have to keep following it up. Because I started making, this is completely unrelated, I started making, but tangentially, stick with me, I started making like models, like D&D models, and I made some of like Critical Role. So I did one of like Not, if you listen to the new one, I did one of Not and Jester. Those exploded. I got loads of retweets. It's really popular, and then afterwards, doof. Like, if I looked at how many people actually followed me from them, it was probably about 20, like hardly anything. So it's following it up and still doing more things.
I think a lot of the time as well, it tends to be around fan art stuff. Because
Yeah,
people will be
for
like,
sure.
oh, I love Spider-Man. And then someone's like done like an amazing painting of Spider-Man. They're just, and then it goes viral. So what they're loving there is the amazing art of Spider-Man. They don't really care that much about, most people don't care that much about you behind that because it's not yours.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you make something that's completely unique, like if you create your own stories or your own original characters, and that goes viral as well. I have special, like, I know,
I think that's the thing. 'cause
warm
if you
feelings
just-
about that.
if you just keep it sounds really counterintuitive. If you just keep making things, and even if there's like nobody there and you're shouting into the void, all it takes is like, if you've got this backlog of all these like strips that you think are really funny, other people think they're really funny, they're just not getting enough like exposure yet. If you just need that one that's gonna explode, and then people go back and they see you've got this backlog.
And if your
You know.
website exists, and then they can go back and go,
they go,
it's really
my
funny.
God,
Oh,
there's
and they've
like
been doing this for
There's
ages.
300 strips I can look at, but you've made 300 strips.
Yeah, I
It's
briefly had
crazy.
that with Jenspiration like years ago, because it was like one comic that was on how to, like, freelancing. And for some reason, people in Spain loved it.
Yeah.
And they all just retweeted it, and I couldn't understand any of the comments or anything, and I was just like, thanks, I think.
It's like trying to explain that Q3 report, and you're like, it's really hitting home with the Spanish market.
Yeah, I don't
what-
know what I did, and nothing has ever been that popular again. But like after that, I did gain, you know, followers and stuff because people were just like, oh, and I kind of went, I've got more.
Yeah,
So-
and it's having that. There's just one tiny thing I was going to say, is that I think everything that you post, you need to make it easy. So
Yes.
if you're posting like a strip and you want people to follow you on Patreon, on Twitter, sounds really like crass, and as I say, I'm a shit capitalist. At the same time, like, you put your quote at the top, and then you make sure they know how to find you. There's so many people who share their Kickstarters and they show a screenshot. It's like, I don't care. I'm not going to search your Kickstarter to find your Kickstarter. Like, you need a link there. You need to like make it so easy to like know exactly what you're about and how to fund you. Like,
I was just going to say, as we, we have overrun today, and I think we're really into the last kind of 8. No, this wasn't. This is on me. No, as we're into like the last kind of 8 or so minutes of the show, maybe we can take your question off air, as it were. I do apologise. I had one quick question and one quick challenge for my fellow panelists today.
It's too late for challenges.
No.
The question is, financially speaking, what is your legal status? So are you a sole trader? Are you a business? Are you a limited corporation? But and to kind of start the conversation there, as Big Punch Studios, we are a limited company. We incorporated a couple of years ago as we started kind of trying to do this a bit more seriously. So we have a business account. We have to do our corporation tax. We have to kind of do company returns, that kind of thing. But then at the same time, there are 4 of us in the company, 4 directors. We have no employees. None of us draw a salary from a company,
Okay.
and we all have day jobs.
Right.
So all the money that Big Punch makes goes right back into Big Punch.
Right. Okay.
So it kind of it was really, we had no real desire to be kind of the Monopoly man or like live in a big, or Scrooge McDuck. It was
Don't
simply
lie,
that,
you've all got monocles.
it was simply that we incorporated because it was a better machine to enable us to keep making the things we do. And none of us are getting rich off it. But at the same time, we really just want a thing that looks after itself. And I think we're in a very fortunate position, speaking as a company, where the money coming in pretty much covers the expenses.
Yeah.
So we're not drawing salaries. We all have day jobs, but the books are looking after themselves. So that's our situation. I was wondering.
Right. I'm a sole trader, so I do everything myself. I don't have any employees except my budgie. He doesn't get he doesn't get paid, but he does flaunt himself on Twitch, so it's great. I get money off him. I'm his pimp. But yeah, so basically I do everything myself, and I make, I wouldn't say a decent living. I make the equivalent of like minimum wage, I guess. And if there's anything to take away from this, it's like if you start getting into this, seriously with like, money making stuff in mind, get an accountant if you don't know how to deal with finances, because I had no idea and it stressed me out. And after I got an accountant, it was just so much easier. I just basically give them like all the numbers and I just go like, make it good.
The black books.
Yeah, just make it nice. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Out of my receipts.
And then he would literally come back to me and he'd be like, so how much coffee did you drink during this period? And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, that's tax deductible. And I was like, what? So I just had to go through all the coffee I've had. Yeah. And I had an ice slushy thing with like nice little balls in it earlier. And that's on my work expenses now. So just save all your receipts. It's great. But yeah, in terms of money, I earn. We said earlier that we weren't going to talk.
I wasn't going to force anyone to reveal numbers.
No, but I am happy because I've already said this online on my very long vlog. I'm happy to say how much I earn if you're curious. So I am working entirely with comics. I've closed commissions for illustration. So this is my just comic wage, I guess. So I earn at least £1,000 a month. And that's basically what I earn. And then I have my page rate is steadily going up. It's been going up for 5 years or something, just slowly. And it's now at about £100 a page, which is really cheap. So, if you look at my Twitter later and you see like a retweet from like all the last year's page rates from all the other like studios and stuff, you can like see how cheap I am for what I do. But basically, I do about £100 per page. And the way I'm making it work is because I'm working with people in small press, so everyone is equally poor. So I do half up front per page. I don't take per like comic project because people don't have that kind of money. And then I do the page, and then when that page is done, I take the last bit of the money. And that way, I have the security that I have 50 quid before I even start drawing, and then they have the security that they will get a page at the end of it, and then they pay the next 50 quid. And then we just carry on like that. And depending on what happens in their personal situation, something can go wrong in their family or something, and suddenly they don't have money that month, that's fine. Like, I have 6 books on right now that I'm doing at the same time. So yeah, so I'm like juggling everything, and it's working out. It's fine. I'm alive, and I buy food.
So when you
and
say,
I pay rent and stuff.
sorry,
That's fine. Go on.
when you say page rate, do you do lettering as well? Because I know you do like it's all water. You usually do watercolors.
I do everything.
Yeah, so lettering as well.
Yeah. And I would call myself an okay letterer. I am not a great letterer by any stretch of the imagination. But like some people, there are a few other comic projects I've done where they have just had me do everything up till the lettering, and then they get like a professional letterer in, and I'm like, great, you do that. Enjoy. Have fun. But other than that, yeah, I do everything. So
that is
I use that as a selling point as well. So I'll be like, look, if you choose me, I will do literally everything for you. You don't have to speak to 6 other people.
The thing is, like, you say 100 quid, and it is like, if you were doing pro stuff, everyone would be like, 100 quid, what the hell? But in terms of like indie stuff, that's really good for like indie.
And I'm increasing it. So by the end of the year, I'm hoping to be up to 120 or 150. And I know at that point,
that's almost pro, right?
Yeah, that's almost up to the point where I am kind of a DC employee, I guess. I think there was
without
DC,
the bullshit.
Without any of that stuff.
Excellent.
But it's taken me years. Like, we're talking, I've been like full-time for about 3-4 years now. And before then I was part-time, obviously, and before then it was just for fun on the side. So it's just like been like 10 years of just slowly working it. There's no you're like have this big break. As far as I know, it doesn't exist. Like, you just have to work at it slowly and make sure that you're nice to deal with and stuff, because word goes around, and word of mouth is really important. So like, if people go, oh, I worked with Jen, she was okay. Oh, cool, I'm gonna work with her too. Oh, she was okay. And then it's like people kind of spread that. So
I feel like I'm a little bit further behind than you, because I'm on like, I think if I make about £400-500 a month, which is a bit like, then I'm happy. That's like my, at the moment, you know, as I say, I'm living at home, so my expenses are so small. But at the same time, I want to move out. Like, I want to make proper money. So it's just like getting that, moving from like really good indie to this is my life. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, before I moved in with my partner, I was living down in Bath, and that's down from here, isn't it? I don't know where we are.
Yes.
Thanks. I don't know. I live up in Leeds now.
Yes.
Everywhere's down.
Everything is down. And I was living in Bath, and if people know Bath, you know it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So I lived in the centre, and I wanted my. I know, already stupid. And I said to myself, I want my own space because I'm going to be working at home. That's my own space, and I need it. So I got my own studio flat where you basically have the kitchen in the same room, and you roll out of bed into the kitchen, all that stuff. That cost me £700 a month, not counting any of the bills, nothing else. And if you remember, I earned £1,000. So I have £300 then to spend on food, living, all my bills, internet, everything, phone. So like, it was no life basically. I was just sitting indoors. I couldn't go to the cinema if I wanted to because I wouldn't have money. It was literally counting pocket change. And I don't want to go back there because that was dreadful. So yeah, make sure that if you're gonna do this, that like you don't do that. It's really bad.
Well, I guess not to end on a low.
Oh
that
God,
was a very,
everyone is gonna be really sad.
But just to end on a final thing, and now this is going to be super concise answers here. It's going to be rapid fire questioning. The same Corey, who I mentioned before, business manager for Toonhound Studios, a podcast called Surviving Creativity. It is very, very good. Used to do what he called the 2-platform challenge.
Right.
So he said for the forthcoming year, so this is back at the start of the year, he said he was challenging all creators to drop one platform and to take on one new platform. And the most extreme answer he had was someone saying they were dropping conventions. Because the outgoings had finally, and they thought they were going to focus entirely on building a web presence.
I understand that.
So if you were forced to choose, like your babies here.
Okay. It's so easy already. I've already got it.
Okay, which one would you drop?
Facebook.
Okay, entirely. No, and but you weren't already. You said you weren't really selling on platform on that platform.
Oh,
anyway,
do you mean one of my good ones?
Well, I guess my question would be: do you have a presence on Facebook, or have you already kind of given up on it?
I have a presence. I'm there out of like an obligation, I guess, because I feel like I should have a presence. So I have a page you can like if you like. And basically I just cross post. So whenever I update my webcomic, it goes on there. Whenever I do anything on my Patreon, it goes onto my page. Then I take that page and I share that to my personal Facebook, and I go, woo, and then that's it. And I have, as far as I know, earned 0 from that. If I have, no one's told me. So
what new one would you, if you can think of one that you'd like to try?
I want to try Comic House. Because Vince, you said that you've earned money there. So yeah, I want to try that. Yes, exactly what I want.
And Sarah?
It's kind of a cheat as well, because I would say Facebook.
Yes.
But then again, if you take into account what I post for my friends, because I get a lot of backing, especially for Kickstarter, like you pull in the troops. Yeah. Like, you know, if I had to drop that would be a bit of a blow. So to being harsh, I'd be like, I'd cut all of Facebook. That would be difficult, but I would do that before cutting Twitter. And I would take on Discord. I want to try Discord out.
Oh, Discord is great.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that.
Similar to Twitch, right?
Yeah. So my Discord is connected to my Twitch. So whenever someone goes on my Twitch and goes, "Hey, we like your stuff," then I basically go, "Come to my Discord," and then they come and hang out. And it's basically just like a chill out place right now for the Twitch. And I again cross post whenever I update anything, and I just kind of go, "Hello, here's my Patreon," and then I've gotten patrons that way. So yeah.
And for me personally, I would very much like to explore Twitch. I've been thinking about this for a while, and you've only just kind of cemented my thoughts.
Oh, it's great.
Quite how that would work for me is something I'd have to explore,
I'd
or for
love
us
to
as a
talk to you
company.
about it.
But Nick's already been looking into it, and I generally just take credit for all the good work he does anyway.
And just to see you do, I think on Mario Paint live stream.
And print it off the printer.
I would learn to draw, maybe not well, but
live.
And if I could drop a platform, although I know I can't, it would be Kickstarter.
Really?
Really?
I have we've run quite a few Kickstarters now, and I do have very mixed feelings, and I don't feel it's quite as welcoming as an environment as it was even 4-5 years ago. I feel a lot of big companies have moved in, and it's becoming, I feel, a lot harder. Yeah, I know that seems like a bit of a low blow, but it is becoming a bit more commercial, and I feel it's harder being what you might think of as a good. I'd like to think what we do is good, but I think being a good comic is not enough anymore, or just being a good product. I think nowadays, when you're contending with so many large companies on Kickstarter which have massive marketing teams and campaigns behind them, I almost feel like it's going against what the spirit of Kickstarter was originally.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like, there shouldn't be a gatekeeper. You can't have someone on the door saying, no, you're not indie enough to come in here.
No.
But it just doesn't seem...
What is indie?
It doesn't seem fair. I mean, like, when we launched our card game on Kickstarter, you know, we had a very good first week, and then we kind of languished for 2 weeks. And it was very hard in that time to see a couple of other card games launch, which, you know, I think were of comparable quality. I'm not saying we were better or worse than them, but instantly, you know, 4,000% funded in like 2 days.
Can I
and
just
like,
say a quick thing about Kickstarter? If you do porn, they accept you, and they are totally fine with you, and they're not just like letting you float under the surface and not be noticed. They are literally okay with you, and you earn loads. Because people in America
That's another
love
takeaway.
porn.
I was going to say, yeah, there is a hell of an appetite for porn on Kickstarter.
Oh
so,
my
yeah.
god. So.
And on that highbrow note, we have a round of applause for our panellists here today.